This Alek Manoa update does not look good, and it's actually quite concerning. Now, he originally didn't report to AAA Buffalo when the Blue Jays sent him down, and he hasn't pitched in a game since being sent down about over a month ago. Now, it doesn't look like he'll pitch again in this season, and we don't know what to expect from him going forward. So, I'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, this Alek Manoah update is very concerning, and we truly don't know what to make of this. Now, he hasn't pitched in a game since being sent down to the Buffalo Bisons. He hasn't even thrown side sessions from what I've heard. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Is he going to start next year in AAA? Is he going to start next year with the big club in Toronto? We truly have no idea, but it seems as though the Jays are holding something back here, that they're not divulging all the information that we need to know about the situation, Nick. And hopefully everything is okay with him. Hopefully it's something that's not horribly wrong with him. I don't want to speculate here, but hopefully it's something that can be fixed and something that can be monitored. And the Jays are just being cautious at this point.
Yeah, on the Blair and Barker podcast yesterday, some light was shed on the whole situation. Before you know that, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 8,300, and your support's been great. So this was what the initial, report was yesterday from Ben Nicholson Smith, saying Alek Manoah is unlikely to pitch again this season. Sources tell Ben Nicholson Smith. Now, this isn't too much of a, wasn't too much of a concern. It was a bit of a surprise. Obviously, he hasn't pitched at all since getting sent down, like you said, after getting called back up and then sent down again. And I looked and we were looking around on Twitter and something came up that was very, very interesting. I listened to the Blair and Barker podcast and it was a bit disappointing to hear what they had to say. And Ben Wagner, I believe it was Ben Wagner, was also on there and he kind of spoke about it. So according to this podcast, now who knows if it's completely true, but Blair and Barker, they're pretty tuned in. Ben Wagner, I believe it was him, was very tuned in. He said that, and you can go to this tweet and listen to the podcast if you want. Essentially what was said was, Alek Manoah failed to report to AAA Buffalo because he and his team was upset that he was demoted due to performance reasons. He hogged a roster spot in AAA while the pitching staff was taxed and hasn't really thrown much since being demoted. Now, Peter, this is a bit of like a crazy bombshell update. I listened to the podcast to make sure that everything was true, and it is exactly what he said. Essentially, Alek Manoah's camp was mad that he was demoted because of performance reasons and not something else, because they think that he could have figured it out at the major league level. If this is the case, this is a bad look for Alek Manoah, and he should be pitching. They gave him 19 chances. I even think and you agree, they called him up too early, and they gave him an earlier chance than he probably deserved. And for him to be upset that he was demoted and decide not to pitch at all is a bit shocking to me.
Line is that you get paid to pitch and you get paid to play baseball, Nick, and you got to be a pro. So whatever the team asks of you, whatever the team expects of you, you got to go ahead and do it. Now, he, like you said, he had 18, 19 starts at the big league level this year, and no, he can't figure it out at the major league level. It's not the time to go ahead and tweak some things and to go find your rhythm and to, I don't know, find your footing in the major leagues when you're in the middle of a pennant race like the Toronto Blue Jays are. They've been up and down all season long, and if it weren't for Alek Manoah being unprepared coming into the season, if it weren't for him underperforming at an unbelievable rate coming into the season, then the Jays would probably be running away with first place at this point. They were horrible when Alek Manoah was pitching because they just didn't get any kind of support from him in that on the mound. And if he were to be even a semblance of his old self, I'm sure the Jays would be competing for the division and not fighting for a wild card spot right now. So he's had his chances to figure it out at the major league level. They even brought him back a second time, and he still couldn't do it. So now you got to go ahead and be a pro, and I just don't like the way that he's sulking. It's got to be something between the ears here, Nick, because I just don't know. I don't know why he's acting this way. I don't know how he's convinced himself that he deserves another opportunity in the big leagues this year, because if you look at his numbers, if you just look at the way that his body language has been all season long, he doesn't deserve to be at the major league level, and he deserves to figure it out in AAA, and he hasn't even shown the willingness to go ahead and do that.
Which is strange because the first time he was demoted, every report that came out from Buck Martinez, everyone who was just speaking about the situation said that he was open to it and he was working hard to get back, and then they brought him back, and now he's like you said, he's upset about it. And this is another reporter here. We've used him a few times. He definitely has sources, and unfortunately he confirmed the truth here, saying can't go too deep into specifics, but let me just say that all the stuff coming out about Alek Manoah and his demotion is accurate. Really awkward situation unfolding here, and this is about as I'm not gonna say as bad as you can get, but it's very, very bad that for one, this is happening, and for two, that it became public that Manoa is just this upset about getting demoted. When you look at his numbers, and we'll discuss that now, and then we can discuss what we think his role might be going forward or what he needs to do. But this was 2023 percentiles in the right. Blue is bad, red is above average. And looking on the left, Peter, I was taking this screenshot. It kind of made me sad a little bit. Brought me back to sad memories of literally just last year, and he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. This year, he had a 5.87 ERA in 87 innings. They gave him 87 innings, which was 19 starts, and they gave him plenty of opportunity. And again, it's not just like his underlying metrics are very, very good. They were very, very bad. He was walking tons of hitters, giving up ridiculous amounts of hard contact. And when comparing this to 2022, night and day difference. Who knows what the real reason is? Could be that he was not fully prepared, not fully in shape for training camp. Mentally definitely has to get to any player, which is a bit unfortunate. But I don't know, Peter. It's a very, very unfortunate situation that continues to unfold a little bit. And just looking at his stats, they've taken a big dip. And he's not the pitcher he was in 2022, so he can't act like that pitcher anymore.
No, he's not. And it's unfortunate because the Blue Jays needed him to be at that level. And it sucks. It just sucks. There's no other way to put it. And I'm not trying to be positive about the whole situation. This was probably the worst case scenario for
Yeah.
the Toronto Blue Jays this year, alongside maybe Vladdy hitting 250 and 10 home runs. That those two scenarios are probably one and two on worst case scenarios for the Toronto Blue Jays, and one of them ended up happening. They're still a good team. They're still 13 games above 500. They're still in a wild card spot, but they should be miles better. And you look, it doesn't take too long to figure out the reason as to why they're not that much better. You could talk about the hitting all you want, but when you have a guy who went from Cy Young finalist or third in Cy Young voting the year before to out of the league and one of the worst pitchers in baseball, it's not too hard to figure out why the team is just underperforming and not playing the way that they should be. I think he'll get back to some sort of his 2022 form. I don't think he'll ever be a 2.24 ERA guy again, but I do think he's a lot better than a 5.87, and I think he is going to get back to that. He's just got to work harder, and he got complacent. He was happy with the success that he had, and how could you not be? You're a 24-year-old, you finished third in Cy Young voting, you live in Miami. That's a recipe for disaster at times if you're not mentally focused, and clearly Alek Manoah was not mentally ready coming into the season. I wish him all the best. I think he'll get back to what he was last season, but he's got to work harder, and he's got to get down to business here in the offseason.
Yeah, and again, his stuff hasn't been good in spring training. I mean, he was okay in spring training, 3.5 or so ERA, but his stuff just doesn't move as much, and it's very, very, very unfortunate that, like you said, he's probably the worst pitcher in baseball. And this rarely happens to where you're elite 2 years in a row and then you randomly just fall off a cliff. It's happened a handful of times, but I can't remember it in my Blue Jays lifetime. Ira Dickey was not like people were complaining about him going from Cy Young to 4.5 ERA, but Manoah is just, I don't know. I'm hoping, and going forward, I think quickly to touch on, I think he'll be back, like you said, to a respectable four starter, maybe even a three starter. I mean, we know he has the ceiling of a Cy Young, potential winner. It's just a matter of if he can get back there because it's going to take a lot. And like you said, he probably got complacent, and unfortunately in the MLB, that's not going to work, especially when you don't have really an electric fastball because he can't get bailed out by his fastball. He really relied on his slider. His fastball average is 94. So I don't know. Any final thoughts on this before we move on and
Yeah.
get back to focusing on the game? But this was something we definitely had to touch on amid a pretty bad loss yesterday to the Rangers, which we're going to gloss over today and just move on from.
This is going to be a long process for Alek Manoah, and it's not going to happen overnight. I don't even think it's going to happen over the course of one season. He's got to use this offseason. He's got to use next season as well to kind of get back to where he was beforehand, before all this stuff started going down. I think he can get back to being a front of the line starter. He's only 25 years old, and he's got a big frame that has a repeatable delivery. So I could see how he's going to be a durable starter for a long, long time. And it's not injury related what's been going on with him. It's purely between the ears, and it's purely just focus with Alek Manoah. So I think he can get back to it. I think he can be a frontline starter. Will he finish third in Cy Young voting again? Who knows? Remains to be seen. But whether we like it or not, whether we want to accept it or not, he's a big part of this future of the team because he's a young, controllable starter with not too much money attached to his name as of yet. So you got to go ahead and take advantage of that if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, and you kind of got to milk those years of arbitration before he becomes a hefty price tag on your team. So I think he's going to be a big part of this team moving forward. He's just got to be laser focused this offseason. No more having fun in Miami here. No more of that. Just got to get down to business if you're Alek Manoah, and I'm sure he'll get back because he is a big time competitor.
Yeah, hopefully you can. And that'll wrap up the video. Let's hope that we don't hear any more bad updates about this. But thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.